Coming up, the rise and almost fall of Bon Jovi in part 2 of Thank You, Good Night, the Bon Jovi Story. Next on Heels and Quads.
Heels and Quads Media, the place where metal lives. With Tommy and Levi, we're taking full control. Screaming vocals, thunderous bass, and crushing beats. Heels and Quads Media, where the metal scene meets.
Welcome back, Heels and Quads Media here on YouTube. I'm Tommy and I'm back again. Second video, one day, 5:30 a.m. recording this video. I'm ready for coffee. That comes after recording this video. Part 2 of Thank You, Good Night. The Bon Jovi Story has been watched. And here is my brief review and summary of this episode, this part of this documentary. So this one takes us from the first album. They are opening. Then we get to 7,800 degrees Fahrenheit. They're opening for the Scorpions. They open for Kiss. They open for Rat. Then we go to the recording of the biggest album of the entire catalog of the band, Slippery When Wet. They record it in Vancouver with Bruce Fairbairn. Engineered by Bob Rock. Richie talks about the drum sound, and he knew right away that this record was going to be something special. They also talked to Desmond Child, who co-wrote You Give Love a Bad Name, Living on a Prayer, so on and so forth. The biggest takeaway of this part of the documentary is that how fast 2 years, 2 years from the first album's release in 84 to 86 and Slippery When Wet, how fast that is as far as entertainment goes, because you always hear a band blows up overnight, and that's not necessarily meaning the band gets together and the next day they're famous. Which is, I think, how I always took it, and also how a lot of fans of music and entertainment take that phrase. I think it's actually like the band is mediocre or somewhat popular, somewhat known, and then all of a sudden they have one big moment, one big song, one big album, and then the next day they're the biggest thing since sliced bread. And that's what you see here. You Give Love a Bad Name comes out, and they're number one. They're number one on MTV. They're number one on Billboard. Then Slippery When Wet, the album, goes to number one. Living on a Prayer comes out. Of course, they talk about how Jon didn't even really like the song at first. He said it was just okay, and Richie said, "You're stupid. This song is the greatest thing we've done to date." And of course, if you've watched any interviews leading up to this documentary, he's talked about, it's not that he hated the song, he liked the song, it was okay. Obviously, he wrote it, or co-wrote it, but it was more once they got to rehearsals, because the song was just that one note. The verse was just one note. Once they got to rehearsals and the full band kicked in, and had that bass line, is what he always talks about, is what drives Living on a Prayer, and it's true. And also in this, you see more of the quote-unquote today Bon Jovi. The 2022 tour, a lot of him battling through his vocal issues, and that we beat that horse to death. It's not fair, really. And I always go back whenever I hear about his voice is, I remember, and I mentioned it briefly in the first part, the Behind the Music that came in on VH1 in 2000. I remember in that they were talking about Jon being shot up with steroids and stuff to help with his voice to get through shows on the New Jersey tour, because his voice was shot from singing for so many shows and so long of shows and high notes and constantly just blowing his voice out. And that doesn't even get mentioned here. So I don't know if maybe that was a fever dream and that didn't really happen. That was never said before all of this, the last few years. But I think I'm right. I'm pretty sure I'm right. Let me know if I am. While you're at it, subscribe, like this video, comment, all that stuff. A lot of good stuff here, though. I think this part, obviously I haven't seen part 3 or part 4, but I think this part is the one that's gonna keep people engaged in this documentary. I think this part is the one that might sway people. Maybe people who formed an opinion on this band that they didn't like them just because they were poppy or, too commercial. I think that this band gets a bad rap from a lot of music fans. Obviously, they have a huge fan base and they're popular and all that, but I mean, like, real music fans should, like, really dive into this band and see that they're not just, poppy hits. There's a underbelly to it. And the story is very charming, and they talk about the Moscow Music Festival. The end of the documentary shows the last show of the New Jersey tour in Guadalajara, where there was a riot, and it had nothing to do with the band, but they were having to kind of like make peace to even do the shows because they were all ready to go home because they were all sick of each other and they were sick of being on the road. And then there's a moment, though, where they're interviewing Jon in 22, and he's sitting on a couch while they're on tour, and he's talking about how he always told the band that if they listen to him and kind of follow his lead, he'll take them where they need to go. He starts to break down a little bit, and he says, "I'm not going to let you see me cry." And then he starts to tear up, and it's like, I don't think I've ever seen Jon Bon Jovi cry. In all of the interviews I've watched and through the years, I've never seen him, and, they had documentaries before, they've had home videos. I've never seen him almost that vulnerable. It's kind of odd. It's almost like watching, your dad cry in a way. It was just really, really made me feel engaged and part of the story, and it was pretty cool to see, honestly. I mean, it's never cool to see anybody cry, but it shows the human side of these people that we put up on a pedestal and think they're larger than life, They're just like everybody else, and you can also tell in this that the digs that people took about his voice and stuff really bothered him, and how personal he took it. And, I think people, even like myself, who, like, critique things, it's like, how do you feel when people critique you, You have to have tough skin, sure, but like I said earlier, you can only beat a horse to death so much before it's just too much. And he even says that he felt like at times that he didn't want to do it anymore because just, is it really worth it? Is going out there and being half-assed worth ruining your legacy for? And it kind of, like, compare it to, like, the Paul Stanley vocal issues that he's had over the years. And he just kept going out there and kept going out there and kept going out there, even though people were saying all these things and, getting called out on backing tracks and stuff like that. It's like, and they still just do it. And it's not, you say, yeah, that's their job, that's how they make their living, but they don't have to do it at this point. Jon Bon Jovi or Paul Stanley. They don't have to do it at this point. They've made their money. They've got enough money for themselves for the rest of their lives. They've got enough money for their children for the rest of their lives. Everybody around them is taken care of. They do it because they care. They want to. They're artists. They want to create. They want to share. This part, opposed to the first part kind of just glosses over everything. This goes a little more in detail, and it's a bigger amount of time. But you also see a lot of footage that you've seen before, but you also see quite a bit of footage that you haven't. So I tell you in this, go watch. If you're gonna watch only one part, I would say this is probably where most people are gonna find the information that they want, is the second part, because it covers the biggest part of the band's career, their most popular points, being Slippery When Wet and New Jersey. I think this is going to be the most engaging. I think this is going to be what makes people watch the entire thing. So tell me what you think about it. Again, subscribe, like, comment. It's coffee time. So I'm going to go watch part 3, have some coffee, and I'll be back for part 3 review soon. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, and I'll see you next time.